That night is etched in my memory, the blue and red lights illuminating our driveway, my fellow officers firing questions at me that I never thought I'd have to face. And there she was, my wife, in handcuffs. Not because she killed someone, not because she stole anything, but because she sold me out to the same criminals I swore to protect the city from. She called me a fool in uniform. I called her my wife. She had been sleeping with a drug dealer for months while I kissed her goodbye each morning before heading into the same streets he ruled. And worst of all, she told him everything. Thank you to all my amazing subscribers for your continued support. Your encouragement means the world. If you haven't already, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this channel with someone who enjoys raw, real-life inspired stories that cut deep and leave a lasting impression. Your support helps bring more powerful, eye-opening stories like this one to life. My name is Brian Keller. I'm 39 years old. I've been wearing the badge for nearly 17 years now, serving in the Tulsa Police Department, Oklahoma. I grew up in a small town just north of here. My father was a firefighter, my mother a schoolteacher. I was raised on discipline, respect, and the idea that if you protect people, the world protects you back. I used to believe that. And I used to believe in my wife. Her name is Madison Maddie, as I always called her. We met at a 4th of July cookout hosted by one of the guys at the precinct. She was there visiting a friend wearing this red sundress that stood out in the sea of blue jeans and tank tops. She was confident, sharp-tongued, and had a laugh that made everything around her feel warmer. We were married 2 years later. For a long time, I thought we had what most people dreamed of. A modest 2-story house on the west side of town. A dog named Ranger. Home-cooked meals some nights, takeout on others. Date nights once a month. Her head on my chest during Sunday morning coffee. But I'll tell you something I learned the hard way. Love can blind you. It can make you miss things that are right in front of your face, little changes, little cracks. And by the time you see them, it's too late. Being a cop in Tulsa isn't like what you see on TV. It's not all car chases and courtroom drama. It's paperwork. It's domestic calls at 2 a.m. It's standing over overdosed teenagers while their parents scream in the background. And lately, it's been drugs. Meth. Fentanyl. Pills you can't even pronounce. And with drugs comes violence. Robberies. Turf wars. Guns in the wrong hands. We've been chasing a mid-level dealer for months. Street name, Jace Slim Moreno. Slim wasn't just a dope boy, he was slick. He ran his business like a CEO. Never carried product himself. Never touched a gun. Always used middlemen, burners, safe houses. The man was like a damn ghost. And somehow he always knew when we were coming. It got to the point where we started looking at each other sideways in the department. Someone's leaking. Someone's tipping this guy off. It never even crossed my mind that the leak could be coming from my own living room. Maddie worked from home. She used to be in real estate, but when the market dipped, she shifted to freelance work, graphic design, copywriting, social media stuff. She said it gave her more flexibility, less stress. First, I loved it. I liked knowing she was home when I left in the morning. I'd come back after a 12-hour shift and find her curled up on the couch in her robe, half watching TV and half scrolling on her laptop. We'd have dinner, maybe a drink. She'd rub my shoulders, ask me about my day. Looking back now, it was rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. The changes were slow. She started locking her phone, staying up late after I went to bed, dressing nicer even when she wasn't leaving the house. She claimed she was doing Zoom calls with clients. I believed her, because I wanted to. Then came the attitude. The distance. She was quick to snap, roll her eyes, shrug off any affection. "Why are you always gone?" she'd ask. "You care more about criminals than your own wife. Maybe I wouldn't need attention elsewhere if you actually gave me some here." That last one should have been a red flag. But I chalked it up to stress. Marriage goes through rough patches, right? That's what people always say. But this wasn't a patch. This was a landslide. One night, after an especially rough shift, a failed sting, one of our informants OD'd, I came home exhausted. Maddie was sitting on the porch smoking. She rarely smoked, only when she was stressed, or so she claimed. "Rough night?" she asked without looking at me. "Yeah," I said. "Slim got away again." She smirked. A little too quickly. "That guy always seems to know when you're coming, huh?" That smirk haunted me for days. I brushed it off then, but something about it dug into me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just under too much pressure, that maybe I was slipping. But it wasn't me. It was her. A few days later, we had a rare Sunday off together. I suggested we go out breakfast, maybe a drive, just like old times. She wasn't interested. Said she had a migraine. Spent the whole day in the bedroom resting. Her phone buzzed constantly. I brought her some tea and caught a glimpse of her texting someone, the name saved as Lena. But something in her eyes told me it wasn't Lena. That night, when she was asleep, I did something I'd never done in our marriage. I checked her phone. It was locked. But I knew her password. She didn't know I knew. I wish I never opened that phone. I wish I never saw the messages. I wish I never read what she said about me. She called me boring. Predictable. Said she hated the batch. Said she wanted out. Said she loved someone else. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. Don't worry, baby. I told you where the next raid was. He'll never see it coming. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was dangerous. And I was sleeping beside the enemy. It was a strange feeling, knowing the truth but pretending you didn't. Waking up next to her after reading those messages. Kissing her forehead while knowing she betrayed me, my trust, my badge, my entire life. She was curled up under the blanket, looking peaceful, almost innocent. But her phone told another story. And so did the name. Jace Slim Moreno. The drug dealer I'd spent nearly half a year trying to bring down was sleeping with my wife. I didn't know whether to throw up or arrest her right there in bed. I couldn't go to internal affairs. Not yet. Not without proof. All I had were some texts, a fake contact name, and a gut feeling that wouldn't stop screaming in my ears. I needed more. I needed to catch them in the act. I needed to see their faces, hear the words. So I did what no good husband should ever have to do. I started building a case against my own wife. I installed a small camera in our living room. One of those cheap, hidden nanny cams disguised as a smoke detector. Another one in the garage. I told Maddie I'd be working overnight surveillance on a new target. That gave her the freedom to act out. I knew she would. I pretended to sleep at the station. But I didn't. I sat in my truck, around the corner from my own damn house, watching my phone screen like it was a crime show. Except this wasn't TV. This was my marriage falling apart in real time. And then he showed up. I recognized him instantly. Tan skin, lean build, gold chain, and that same smug walk he had every time he avoided a bust. He walked up to my front door like he owned the place, like he belonged there, and she opened it, wearing a silky black robe. Nothing underneath. They kissed before the door even shut. Not a hug. Not a peck. A deep, greedy kiss like two people who hadn't seen each other in weeks. I watched it unfold in silence. My hands clenched on the steering wheel. My heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. I'd arrested men for less. But this wasn't a street corner or a crack house. This was my home. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the things they said after. He sat on my couch, poured himself a drink, laughed, and then she said it. He has no clue. He's out chasing you while I'm right here, giving you all the info you need. He grinned. You're my little snitch. She giggled like a teenager. Let him work himself to death. One more raid gone bad and he's finished. Then it's just you and me, baby. She leaned against his chest, played with his necklace. He's nothing but a fool in uniform. I stared at the screen. My mouth dry. I wasn't even angry at that point. I was numb. My wife, the woman who once promised to love, honor, and protect me, was feeding information to the very criminals I swore to stop. And she was doing it with a smile on her face. I sat there for hours after they left. Didn't go inside. Didn't call anyone. Just sat in the truck, gripping my service weapon like it could somehow fix everything. I kept thinking, what if someone got killed because of her? What if one of my men walked into a trap because she told Slim where we'd be? And worse, what if she didn't care? She didn't. That's what tore me apart. She didn't seem to feel a shred of guilt. She didn't delete the messages. She didn't hide him. She didn't even flinch when she mentioned me. She wanted me gone. Out of the picture. Ruined. Over the next week, I played my role. Husband. Officer. Provider. I smiled. Kissed her goodbye. Ate the dinners she cooked like nothing had changed. But behind the scenes I gathered everything I could. Texts. Videos. Voice recordings. Even a photo of her and Slim together at a motel taken by a private investigator I hired. I built the case like a professional. Because I am a professional. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to destroy her lies, brick by brick. I turned the footage over to Internal Affairs under an anonymous report. Within 48 hours, an internal investigation was opened. 3 raids were rescheduled. 2 targets were arrested. And Jace Moreno? He went off the radar. That's when I realized. Maddie warned him again. She was still leaking. Still choosing him over me. Still willing to burn me to the ground if it meant she could ride off into the sunset with her drug-dealing fantasy boyfriend. But she didn't know something very important. I had already recorded everything. They say betrayal is like a knife in the back. But this was betrayal with a smile. With lipstick. With whispers in the dark while I slept in the next room. And even then, with all I knew, I couldn't understand why she did it. I didn't deserve sainthood, but I was loyal. I was hers. And now, I was her target. But I wasn't going down without a fight. She chose him. She chose danger. Now they'll both learn what it costs to betray a man who swore to protect and serve. Even when the enemy lives under his own roof. They always say the fall is worse when you think you're flying. That's exactly where Maddie and Slim were. High on secrets. Convinced they were invincible. But they didn't see the net I was weaving beneath them. Thread by thread. By the end of that week, I had enough. Not just enough evidence. Enough pain. Enough humiliation. Enough silence. It was time to burn it all down. Internal Affairs called it Operation Trapdoor. But for me, it was personal. Slim's network had grown bold thanks to the leaks Maddie gave him. Locations of planned raids, names of undercovers, and even details from sealed warrants. She wasn't just a cheater. She was an accessory to organized crime. And she didn't even care. Our team set up a sting. Slim was known to run shipments through a tire shop off 8th Avenue that doubled as a stash spot for fentanyl. We fed Maddie false intel. A fake bus location. A fabricated time. She passed it on just like we hoped she would. And Slim took the bait. I wasn't supposed to be there. Protocol said I was too close. But I made sure I was in the van across the street when Slim showed up, flashing his fake smile, walking straight into the trap with his duffel bag full of powder and cash. 5 seconds later, the command was called. Go. Doors flew open. Guns up. Flashbang. Chaos. And just like that, Slim was on the floor, zip-tied and stunned, face down next to his bag of dirty money. He looked up at me as I entered. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I just whispered. She gave you up too. I watched his eyes narrow. That cocky glint he always had was gone. You're lying. Am I? I leaned closer. You ever think maybe she's playing you like she played me? That was the first crack in his armor. Slim broke within 48 hours. Turns out, love's a lot less powerful when you're facing 30 years in federal prison. He talked. He gave up his runners, his drop houses, his stash spots. And he gave up Maddie. Every single detail. He told them about the texts, the meetings, how she'd stolen files from my briefcase, how she even bugged my work phone to listen in on calls. And still, a part of me didn't want to believe it, until they showed me the recordings. It was from 2 weeks earlier. Slim, you sure he won't find out? Maddie laughing. Please. Brian still believes I'm baking cookies for the church fundraiser. Slim, what if they trace it back to you? Maddie. Then I cry, put on some mascara, say I didn't know what I was doing. Cops never blame the wife. That was it. That was the moment something inside me died. Not because she betrayed me, but because she was proud of it. I waited until the night after the bust. She was in the kitchen, humming, stirring sauce. Still wearing the same damn robe I watched her greet Slim in. I set the laptop on the table. Pressed play. She turned, confused. And then her face drained of color. Brian. Don't. Just don't. She stared at the screen. The video played again. Her words, her laughter. It echoed in our kitchen like a ghost. It's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like. She reached for me. I stepped back. You bugged me? You spied on me. I laughed. She was the victim now? You leaked police intel to a drug lord. You jeopardized lives. You cheated. And you're mad I found out? She folded her arms. That smug glint came back. You were never around. You cared more about your badge than me. I found someone who actually listened. No. You found someone who used you. And you helped him destroy everything I stood for. Silence. And then she said it, the line that broke the last piece of me. I don't regret it, Brian. Not one bit. She was charged the next day. Conspiracy, obstruction, unauthorized access of police records. accessory to drug trafficking. I didn't speak at her arraignment, didn't sit in the courtroom, didn't look her in the eye. Because the woman I married, she didn't exist anymore. People think the worst pain comes from strangers. But it's worse when it comes from someone who once whispered, "I love you," in your ear. Worse when that same mouth now calls you a fool. I gave her everything, and she gave it to the streets. But this story isn't over. Not yet. She betrayed me in our bed. She betrayed the badge. Now, in court, she's trying to take the last thing I have left. My name. I thought the worst was behind me. The sting had worked. Slim was behind bars. Maddie had been arrested. The house was empty, quiet, cold, but peaceful. But peace is temporary when someone like her still has breath in her lungs and poison in her heart. And she wasn't done yet. It was a rainy Tuesday morning. I sat alone in the third row dressed in plain clothes. Not in uniform, that felt too sacred for a day like this. She entered the courtroom in cuffs and an orange jumpsuit. No mascara this time. No sweet perfume. Just Maddie. Raw. Stripped down. But her eyes were still sharp. Like she had something planned. The prosecutor laid out everything. Her text exchanges with Slim. Her audio recordings laughing about leaking info. Security footage from Slim's drop house showing her delivering files. It was airtight. Then her lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client was not operating as an independent conspirator. She was manipulated into assisting a known criminal. By her husband." I froze. Did I hear that right? He continued. Officer Brian Easton abused his access to police records and forced his wife to participate in illegal activities, coercing her through fear, emotional intimidation, and threats. I stood up instinctively. That's a lie. The judge banged the gavel. "Mr. Easton, please sit down or you will be removed from the courtroom." I sat, but my hands were shaking. She looked at me from across the courtroom dead in the eyes. And smiled. Her new story was simple. That I was cold. Controlling. That I loaned her files to gain favor in the department. That I used her to do my dirty work. She flipped the narrative. And believe it or not, some people believed her. News outlets ran with it. Wife of decorated officer claims she was used as pawn in police corruption scandal. Even though I wasn't charged with anything, even though the evidence clearly proved otherwise, the damage was done. My chief put me on administrative leave pending review. I wasn't just losing a wife. I was losing my name. The only way to shut her down was with truth. I went back through everything: case files, body cam records, email logs, GPS data, timestamps. And then I found it. The deleted video message. She must have forgotten about it. A little selfie video she recorded in Slim's car, bragging about being untouchable. Brian thinks I'm asleep right now, per guy. Meanwhile, I'm out here making real moves. Slim says this next batch is worth $100K. If we pull it off, I'll finally be done pretending I give a damn about that man in uniform. I sent the video straight to the DA's office. Her plea deal vanished. In the final week of the trial, Maddie's story collapsed. Her lawyer tried to pivot. Said she was mentally coerced or emotionally unstable. But the jury wasn't buying it. They saw the real her. The sentences came fast. 18 years for conspiracy and obstruction. No parole for at least 11. When the judge asked her if she had anything to say, she stood. "I don't regret what I did. I regret trusting the wrong people. But I'll be back. And I'll be better." She glanced at me one last time. No apology. No shame. Only hate. And maybe something like satisfaction. I left the courtroom that day not as a hero. Not as a husband. But as a man who survived something most people wouldn't believe. You don't expect to find the enemy in your bed. You don't expect the love of your life to hand your soul to a criminal and laugh while it burns. I had scars now. Not just on my reputation, but on my spirit. Still, I walked out with my head high. Because I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. And I didn't break. She did. Sometimes the worst battles aren't fought in war zones or back alleys. They're fought at the dinner table. In the silence after betrayal. In the courtroom where truth and lies wear the same suit. Maddie tried to destroy me one last time. But I'm still standing. And there's only one thing left to do. Tell the world the truth. I kept waiting for her to say sorry. She never did. So I learned to stop needing it. When Maddie went to prison, the silence in our home grew louder. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and reach over out of habit only to feel the cold sheets beside me. Her things were long gone, boxed up by her lawyer's assistant and dumped at her mother's place. The wedding photo over the mantel was the last to go. I stared at it for days. Two people smiling like the world couldn't touch them. But it had. And one of them let it in. I finally took it down the night the first snow fell. That winter was long. Her family didn't speak to me after the trial. They believed her lies, at least at first. Then later, her mother called once. I still can't believe she'd do that. To you. To us. I didn't know what to say. Sometimes even those closest to the fire pretend they don't smell the smoke until the whole house is gone. About 4 months into her sentence, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. No apology. Just 10 words written in her familiar, looping script. You'll never forget me. I branded myself into you. I burned the letter. Not out of anger, but because I knew she was right. Some betrayals don't fade. They stay. Like fingerprints on your soul. The department eventually cleared me of all wrongdoing. My badge was reinstated. My pay restored. But something had changed. I no longer looked at the job the same. I used to feel pride putting on that uniform. Now I felt exposed. Like everyone was watching me differently. Not as the officer who served, but as the man whose wife had laughed at him while lying in another man's bed. I put in my papers. 6 months early retirement. That was it. I sold the house. Too many ghosts. Too many memories. I moved 3 towns over. Closer to my sister, who made me Sunday dinners and forced me to talk about things I kept buried. And one night, over her meatloaf and iced tea, she said, "Brian, you deserve peace. But you won't find it if you keep punishing yourself for what she did." That line stuck with me. I realized I hadn't been trying to forgive Maddie. I'd been trying to understand her. And some people, you'll never understand. Because their darkness is bottomless. Few years later, I met a very nice lady on a rainy afternoon at the local library. Her name was Elise. She worked part-time, restoring old books and running reading programs for veterans. She smiled at me like she wasn't trying to figure me out. Just see me. It started with coffee. Then long walks. Then she asked me casually, "Have you ever been in love?" And I told her the truth. Once. But she didn't love me back the same way. She loved what she could take. And when there was nothing left, she blamed me for being empty. Elise just nodded. "Well," she said, touching my hand, "I'm not here to take. Only to give. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you. This wasn't easy to share. It wasn't heroic or glamorous. It was painful. Embarrassing. Real. I married a woman who wore her love like a mask. She said the right things. Did the right things? Until someone shinier came along and promised her the thrill I never could. And she sold me out for danger, for power, for lust. She burned the bridge and smiled while watching me drown. But I didn't. I swam through the fire. I rebuilt. And I learned that some love stories don't end with happily ever after. Some end with survival. If you made it through to the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more real-life inspired dramatic stories like this. The more you support, the more I can keep bringing you stories of betrayal, survival, and redemption that hit deep and stay with you. And to my loyal subscribers, you keep me going. You really do. Until next time. Stay strong. Stay sharp. And never ignore the red flags. Brian Easton. That's the Indy.